Minicamp Takeaways coming at you guys on today's Cowboys Report. Tom Downey here. First up, beyond, of course, the absent CeeDee Lamb, Peyton Hendershot, also not present to media during Cowboys Minicamp today per Nick Harris. I don't think this means that much in theory. I would assume either some minor injury, he was getting worked on inside, or personal issue, and he'll be back tomorrow or something there. Hendershot is not good enough, impactful enough, or worth being paid enough to make this contractually related. So I'm sure that'll be sorted out here in 24 hours. So I'm sure I'll ask Mike about it at tomorrow's press conference, assuming there is one. Now, if you guys want more Cowboys minicamp updates tomorrow and winners and losers, I think that might be done on Thursday. More on that here in a little bit. If you want more news updates, type me in the comments section right now. Now, the bigger news, beyond, of course, Lamb skipping as expected, Micah Parsons did not skip. He was present at minicamp today, was involved in all the team drills, worked mostly at defensive end, had a couple packages where he kind of lined up at linebacker. I think you'll see some of those Zimmer patented double A gap blitzes that work oh so well. I think you can see Micah utilized in there. It does seemingly, emphasis on seemingly since it's June, fits the move him around but mostly play defensive end theory. Plus you've got 4 other linebackers that you have invested decent amounts in, relatively speaking. You know, McCarthy, who was, I think, a little nonplussed to keep answering questions about Micah and Lamb not being present at times, he made a bigger deal about the bonding side. Like, you're trying to get, the old guys, the veterans, they know what they're doing for the most part. The new guys are learning. You want to get those two connected, those two groups on the same page and bonding together. Now, Micah, after practice, spoke with reporters, had a bunch of different answers, some of which I liked, some of which I didn't. Kind of asked the product, like, hey, why'd you skip OTAs, etc. Lots of different answers from, I was at my kid's kindergarten graduation. Totally valid. To this, I'm just looking at it as time for my body to heal. I'm an undersized rush who gets banged up every year. I'm just letting my body get healed and getting ready for the year. Okay, sure. There's no contact at OTAs. Like, you're not tackling anybody. Frankly, there's more contact involved with the sumo wrestling than there is at OTA. So I don't really buy that argument at all. I think what Micah said, while not trying to say, is he just didn't want to be there. And that's fine. It's fine. And it's not contract related. He's fine to wait because he knows he'll reset the market next year. I'm glad he's here. He needed to be at Mandatory Minicamp. Would have been a big problem if he wasn't there at Mandatory Minicamp. That is an essential time to be there. So I am glad that Micah Parsons showed up to Mandatory Minicamp. Frankly, I would have been disappointed, mad, whatever, if, Micah wasn't there. Now, what I am most intrigued by was this comment from Micah on Mike Zimmer. Quote, I can't wait to have my true sit down with him, saying they've talked for like 20 minutes or 20 words, they said. I think that'll be pretty cool because obviously old school mindset, old school mentality. He's had a lot of great players, but he ain't never had a Micah before. It'll be fun. I think it'll be unique. There's some things that I got to get used to, too. It's going to be a compromising relationship. I appreciate the confidence in Micah. To an extent, you want your defenders to think they're the greatest player ever, even though, Zim's coached Hall of Famers like Marcus Ware, Charles Haley. I am a little bit anxious about that. I don't know how much compromise will actually be between those two. Kind of get to the ego angle there. So we'll see how that plays out. A little bit anxious about that one, if I'm being honest there. So what is your confidence level in Micah Parsons, the player? Scale it for me from 1 to 10 at the pinned comment of today's video. Head down there and go vote. Some positive injury updates here. We'll go kind of rapid fire on. Trevon Diggs back on the practice field for Dallas. Now, he was still with the rehab group, which is fine. That's expected as he trends toward being ready to go for training camp, with the exact same thing being true for DeMarvion Overshown. Some photos of both guys looking fairly happy to be out there. Expectation is both those guys are back in time for camp. My goal is they don't start the year on the PUP list. I think that'd be the ideal outcome for all parties involved. More fully back was CJ Goodwin. He had the season-ending shoulder injury last season. He had the helmet on, was actually working stuff. With the greater emphasis on special teams, I think that helps CJ Goodwin, carve out his roster spot, whether it's on the 53 or practice squad call-up like it's been the past few years. I think Dallas will find a spot for him once again. Today's show was made possible by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. You can turn $10 into $1,000 in as little as in a single game watching your favorite sport this summer. You can make a PrizePicks lineup in as little as 60 seconds. You pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and that is it. You are locked in. PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members, and the finals mean more on PrizePicks, and so do these star players. You can get boosted payouts on select basketball stars you won't find anywhere else. One of my NBA Finals PrizePicks slates is this. You kind of got the boosted freebie payout. Basically, if you do a half point, he'll get a half point. It's a no-brainer. I like the Kyrie Irving revenge game angle, 24 points. I like the way Derek Lively has played, 16.5 points, boards, and assists, more than there. He's gotten there 4 of his last 5 games. It's the proper over-under, but I'm curious to see how Pingus plays after missing a little bit of time with that injury, obviously. So download the app today and use code CLNS over at prizepicks.com/CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Link will be in the comment section and the description of today's show. Some minicamp takeaways gathered from all the big J's that were present. Number 1, Dak was not perfect today. Threw a pick to Deron Bland. Donovan Wilson made a nice play as well. I would always caution, I hope we learned our lesson last year, right? When you have an established quarterback, do not worry too much about what's actually going on there, especially in these 7-on-7 drill stuff where we don't actually know the situation. It's not like it's, most cases, up there on the scoreboard of, okay, it's 4th and 11. If it's 4th and 11, you throw a pick, trying to make a play, it's fine. 1st and 10, different conversation, right? There's nothing that can happen positively or negatively outside of an injury when it comes to Prescott that should make you tilt either way beyond how you felt previously. Should know how you feel previously because we know who he is at this point. I would not read too much into that either way. Other quarterbacks, different conversation we'll get into here. Number 2, look, you were always looking for, as my buddy Landon McCool says, the steady drum beats. Like, hey, this was said the first media open practice. This was said the second. This was said the third. This has been said, I believe, all 3 times. Dak to Cooks looks sharp. The deep ball's working. And Cooks at one point last week blew by Deron Bland for a huge play. Had another big successful deep ball this week. I see that as an absolute win. There are some positives to CeeDee Lamb not being present. Namely, you kind of force Cooks into the quote-unquote wide receiver one role. Other players get run, of course, as well. We saw this also last year where, the speed for Cooks is real, and then Dallas didn't call very many deep shots to Cooks. At least not successful ones. Dak did miss a couple times there as well. Seems like the chemistry's sharp. Cooks and Dak have got an extra work on the side in that D4K backyard. So I would hope to see more results from Cooks, and maybe you give some of those gallop targets to him, by the way. So last year, 657 yards. So over or under 657.5 yards this season for Brandin Cooks. Type in O for over, U for under. Number 3 is some more Jalen Brooks hype. Bobby Belt kind of, I think, leading the charge in a positive way. And I think Bobby and I don't always agree, obviously, but he's got a good eye for football as well. He's been very impressed by Cooks, snatching the ball out of the hands, not being a body catcher, going up and getting it. I do think there is a battle for the wide receiver 3 spot. Kevontae Turpin could be involved there. Maybe he's more of a gadget player. Jalen Tolbert obviously involved there. Jalen Brooks involved there. With no CeeDee Lamb, you kind of get chances for both Jalens to get some playing time in there. And special teams also matters in this conversation, depending on who's receiver 5 and 6. Because Turpin's going to make this team. I would be blown away if he didn't with the new kick return rules. So who's your other 2 to 3 receivers max who make the roster? Got some competition there. Dallas did also draft Ryan Flournoy. Carve out the 3 role, it's a big deal. Otherwise, it's got to help on special teams. And that won't be sorted out for a while. We will be here for a while. Hit that sub button for daily Dallas Cowboys YouTube videos pretty much every single day. YouTube.com/@CowboysTV. Number 4 takeaway here. Some good, some bad from Trey Lance. Judging on the reporting, it was, pretty sharp day 1 at OTAs. Not so sharp day 2. A little inconsistent still on day 3. I would argue that's mostly to be expected. This is a process. This is it seems to be more comfortable in his footwork. Seems at times to be a little bit late to the outside on some throws. Maybe that's a processing thing. Maybe it's a comfort thing, not having thrown to a bunch of these guys pretty consistently. I will also make note, it's also June. Check in again in July, end of July. Check in again in August, and we'll have a better feel for where Lance really sits. Since, again, it's mostly 7-on-7 work. So pick a backup QB. CR for Cooper Rush, TL for Trey Lance. Go ahead and sound off for me in the comment section of today's show. Now, this next one is me reading between the leaves here. How about no day 3 of minicamp? McCarthy in his press conference, talking about the young guys, Guyton and Beebe adjusting, referred to, quote-unquote, these last 2 days. Well, there's supposed to be 3 days of minicamp. Today, Wednesday, Thursday. Would not be the first time Dallas says, we're going to cancel things early. And we're gonna have you guys, we're going to go play Topgolf and Bond, which is a very popular thing for NFL players to, I think, because it's an easy thing to kind of rent out with low risk of injury and entertaining, and you always get the social media clips of people trying to hit a golf ball. It's like the one thing I can do better than most NFL athletes is hit a damn golf ball. So I would keep an eye on that. Maybe the only thing I can do better. I don't even say talking better. Keep an eye on them not having day 3 of minicamp and doing team bonding days, which also ties into big emphasis from Mike about the bonding angle. Also, it would save CeeDee Lamb some money, by the way. I believe if you cancel day 3 and don't have practice, you don't have to go to Topgolf. So you wouldn't get fined for it, I think. Let's also discuss Deuce Vaughn. Look, he is still mainly a running back. I do want to emphasize that, but he is getting cross-trained at slot receiver and at kick returner. Here's what Big Mike said on Deuce Vaughn. He looks good. He looks really good. We've tried to cross-train a number of guys this offseason. This is when you do it. It's that 53-man roster, then you cut down to 48, get on the roster. This is what you do with players who have dual position potential. Now, I'll say this. Oftentimes, when you see position movements, especially for young guys, it means, we don't know what to do here. This wasn't working at position A. That's when they moved Josh Ball inside to guard because it wasn't a very good tackle. They moved Kelvin Joseph from the outside to the nickel corner spot, even though there were already guys ahead of him. And it was, he's not a good outside corner, and they traded him months later. So they actually are being honest, trying to give Deuce Vaughn extra position flexibility. They think there's some overlap in the skills with the guys like Kevontae Turpin in particular with Deuce Vaughn return value there, trying to make him more valuable to be the 48th man on the roster or whatever on game days. Or is there, we don't know what he actually is. I guess we'll find out as things move along. He does offer some pass catching. You can almost call the 2023 campaign a wash for Deuce Vaughn. Outside of like 2 drives, they were all in garbage time. So, as it turns out, this is like the Giants game I'm thinking of, right? Like, Deuce Vaughn being your grind up the clock guy, that's not going to work. But the game was over already, so you just gave him some chances, right? I'm curious how that plays out. Definitely a player to monitor, I believe, throughout the preseason. So will Deuce Vaughn make the Cowboys roster this season? Give me your honest answers. Y for yes, N for no. I'll also point this out. I think the new kick return rules might really help Deuce Vaughn. Seems like he's the number 2 option, or at least gets the first crack to be the number 2 option behind Kevontae Turpin. I think you'll see teams put guys on both sides. Maybe they try to even do like some weird staggering stuff to balance it a little bit. I'm not so sure. There's not that many obvious return options. I think Wanye Thomas is helped out by this rule. Maybe someone like Jalen Cropper gets a chance. Those guys were among the kick return options. But if Deuce Vaughn can kind of carve out the number 2 kick returner, number 3/4 RB, and like third down pass catcher and emergency slot wide receiver role, that actually does carry value on the 48 and not just the 53-man roster for the Cowboys.